Picture a crowded subway car in any major city. Millions of people are pressed together, sometimes mere inches apart, yet completely silent and entirely isolated. They are scrolling on screens, listening to headphones, existing in their own digital bubbles. We have never been more connected in human history, at least in terms of data and information. But physically, we are living in an era of profound isolation. And what we are discovering now is that this lack of physical closeness, the absence of a hand on a shoulder, a simple hug, or skin to skin reassurance, is doing something terrifying to our bodies. What if human touch isn't just a nice, comforting gesture? What if it is literally required for our biological survival?
That is the exact question modern neuroscience is grappling with right now. We tend to think of loneliness as a purely emotional state, a sort of sadness or melancholy that you just need to push through. But the nervous system doesn't see it that way at all. When the body goes without physical touch for prolonged periods, it doesn't just feel sad. It interprets that absence as a state of acute biological danger. We evolved as intensely tactile creatures. Touch is what regulated our sense of safety, our stress levels, and our attachment to the tribe. When you remove that tactile input, the body enters a subtle but chronic state of distress. Cortisol rises. Inflammation spreads. The body essentially prepares for the worst, because historically, being isolated meant you were highly vulnerable to threats.
It makes me think about how we handle infants. We intuitively know that a newborn baby needs to be held. There is this massive universal emphasis on skin-to-skin contact immediately after birth. But somehow we assume that as we grow up, we just outgrow the need for that physical connection. We start treating adults like we are just floating brains that only need a Wi-Fi connection to survive.
Which is a fundamental misunderstanding of human biology. Touch is arguably the very first language the nervous system learns. Long before a baby can understand words or recognize facial expressions, it understands the pressure of a mother's chest, the warmth of skin, the rhythm of a heartbeat. That physical contact directly dictates the infant's heart rate, its temperature regulation, and the development of its immune system. Infants who are deprived of that nurturing touch often suffer severe developmental consequences. Their nervous systems simply do not wire correctly for stress management. And you are absolutely right, we do not outgrow this. The adult nervous system still expects, and desperately needs, tactile reassurance to know that the environment is safe.
I've heard researchers use this incredible phrase, skin hunger. It sounds almost poetic, but also a bit dystopian. What exactly is happening in the body when we experience this hunger? Is it a literal craving, similar to how we crave food or water when we are depleted?
It is incredibly similar to a physical craving, yes. The term skin hunger perfectly captures the biological reality. We often think of the skin as just a wrapper for our organs, a protective barrier against the outside world. But the skin is actually the largest sensory organ we possess, and it is densely packed with receptors that are hardwired directly into our nervous system. Think of your skin as a massive satellite dish, constantly scanning the environment for signals of safety or danger. When these receptors are stimulated by safe, consensual touch, they send immediate signals to the brain to release oxytocin, and they activate the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest mode. When you are deprived of touch, those receptors are essentially starving. The nervous system remains in a state of partial dysregulation because it isn't receiving the biochemical signals that tell it to power down and relax.
So, if I am understanding this correctly, physical touch acts as a sort of anchor. It stabilizes our biology. Without it, we are just drifting in the state of low-level panic, even if we don't consciously realize it.
That is a brilliant way to put it. We are drifting in a state of low-level panic, and that panic manifests physically as inflammation. This is where the research gets truly fascinating and a little alarming. Chronic loneliness and touch deprivation actually elevate pro-inflammatory cytokines in the blood.
Wait, cytokines? So you are saying the body is reacting to loneliness the exact same way it reacts to a physical injury or a viral infection?
Precisely. To the immune system, chronic isolation is an emergency. Think about it from an evolutionary standpoint. For early humans, wandering away from the tribe meant you were exposed to predators, freezing temperatures, and starvation. Isolation meant vulnerability. So, when the modern brain perceives that it is isolated, it triggers the sympathetic nervous system. It pumps out cortisol. It ramps up inflammation to prepare for potential wounds because it assumes an attack is imminent. Over time, this constant inflammatory burden wears down the body. It damages cardiovascular health, disrupts metabolism, ruins sleep architecture, and degrades cognitive resilience. The lonely body behaves exactly like an injured body.
That is staggering. We are walking around with these ancient immune systems that are treating our modern, isolated lifestyles like a physical wound. And on the flip side, when we do experience safe touch, we get that rush of oxytocin you mentioned earlier. I think people casually know oxytocin as the cuddle hormone, but it does so much more than just make us feel warm and fuzzy, right? It literally changes our internal chemistry to counter that inflammation.
It absolutely does. Calling it the cuddle hormone really undermines its systemic power. Oxytocin is a potent neurochemical regulator. When you hold someone's hand, or hug a friend, or even just lean against someone on a sofa, oxytocin floods the system. It actively lowers cortisol levels, it reduces blood pressure, it dials down that defensive hypervigilance we just talked about. It is the biochemical equivalent of a stand-down order to the immune system. It tells your cells, we are with our tribe, we are safe, you can stop preparing for an attack. Touch literally rewires our chemical state in real time. Intimacy is, at its core, neurochemical regulation.
Which brings us to the elephant in the room, the modern world. We have engineered a society that almost entirely eliminates the need for physical proximity. We work remotely, we order groceries through an app, we socialize through screens, we express affection with emojis. We can go days, sometimes weeks, without touching another human being. We might feel socially connected because we are texting all day, but biologically we are stranded on a deserted island.
That is the great paradox of our time. We are transmitting massive amounts of information to each other, but we are transmitting zero biological connection. A text message cannot lower your blood pressure. A video call cannot synchronize your breathing with another person. The nervous system evolved to expect physical proximity, the micro expressions you only catch in person, the subtle scent of another human, the physical co-regulation that happens when two bodies are near each other. Digital communication completely strips all of that away. We are feeding our minds with social data, but we are starving our nervous systems of tactile reality.
It makes me wonder about the sheer exhaustion so many people feel today. We talk about burnout, we talk about anxiety, epidemics. But maybe a huge piece of that puzzle is simply that our bodies are exhausted from trying to regulate themselves all alone. We are missing the biological medicine of human closeness.
I strongly believe that is the case. Without adequate co-regulation, which is just a scientific way of saying borrowing someone else's calm nervous system to calm your own, our baseline functioning shifts. We become more anxious, more reactive, less resilient. Our sleep degrades because the body refuses to enter deep, restorative sleep when it feels unprotected. Touch deprivation quietly, relentlessly, exhausts the entire biological system. We lose our physiological reassurance.
So, if touch is a form of biological medicine, how do we begin to prescribe it? In a society that is moving faster and faster toward digital isolation, how do we relearn the art of physical connection? It feels like we need a massive paradigm shift in how we view health. We track our steps, our macros, our screen time, our heart rate. But maybe we need to start tracking our moments of physical connection. We buy all these expensive wearables to tell us how stressed we are, but the cure might just be sitting next to us.
That is exactly where the future of preventative medicine needs to go. Wearables are fantastic for gathering data, but wearables don't improve health on their own. Interpretation and action do. We have to stop viewing touch, community, and emotional safety as luxury items or purely psychological comforts. They are critical biological inputs. Emerging research strongly suggests that positive social interaction and physical touch directly support immune regulation and inflammatory balance. The body heals far more effectively in states of perceived safety. We cannot optimize human health while ignoring the very mechanism that tells the body it is safe enough to heal. The nervous system does not draw a sharp line between emotional connection and physical survival. To the cells in our body, they are deeply intertwined.
That is such a profound reframing. It means that reaching out and holding someone's hand isn't just a sign of affection. It is one of humanity's oldest, most sophisticated survival technologies. We survived the harshness of the ancient world by huddling together, and maybe that is exactly how we survive the harshness of the modern digital world.
I couldn't agree more. Deep inside the primitive structures of our brains, despite all our technology and independence, the body still longs for that physical reassurance. It is constantly listening for the signal that says, you are safe, you belong, you are not alone. And more often than not, that profound biological signal arrives through something as simple and as beautiful as human touch.
A reminder that while we can build machines to do almost anything, we cannot outsource our biology. We need each other literally to survive. Thank you for taking us on this incredible journey through the nervous system today. It certainly makes me want to put down my phone and go hug my loved ones.
That is the best possible takeaway. The body heals through connection. Thank you for exploring this with me.
And thank you all for listening. Remember to reach out, connect, and remind your nervous system that it isn't alone. We will see you next time. Okay.